recording on my iPad, recording my TV screen. What is going on there?
I don't know. What is that? Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Credit. Today, I am very humbled and ecstatic for my guest, Mr. Spencer Johnson. Spencer, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
What was it in, I think one of Chad's videos where he
Yeah, in
said
his
something
live,
and then
yeah.
you were in the comments, you're like, dude, let's make it happen. And I was like, externally, I was like, yeah, cool. And internally, I was like, oh my God.
That's awesome. Yeah, we tried to make this happen, like 3 or 4 times now, but finally sitting down to record it. So I'm happy to do it.
It's been a couple of times.
Yeah.
Regrettably, the last time we spent an hour trying to figure it out, and all it was that I just had to turn my camera into landscape to get the computer to pick it up.
So, yeah, that's all right. All happens for a reason.
Yeah. So, man, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Not like there's anybody out there who doesn't know who you are, but
yeah, I can introduce my YouTube self at least. So there's a lot, obviously, that we're going to probably cover here. But for those of y'all that don't know me, my name's Spencer Johnson. I make basically all credit card, personal finance content here on YouTube, and it's something that I'm fortunate enough to do full time now. So worked as an engineer before, but now I'm doing this as my full time gig, and just love getting to share what I'm learning. It's basically just me documenting my entire credit card journey from the start. I started it 2 years ago or whatever, when I basically started getting credit cards, and got to the point now where I'm at actually 12 credit cards as of yesterday, which that's a little inside baseball for you. But yeah, so just continuing to document my journey and sharing it with like-minded people that resonate with it. So it's pretty awesome.
All right, well, so what's the new card?
So I assume this will come out. I don't know when this will come out, but I'll tell you now. So I did the 2 applications in one day. I think I might have talked to you about this before a little bit, maybe not, but I dropped under 524, Chase 524 on the 13th, and the Chase Inc. offers were expiring this morning, the 18th at 9 a.m. or that's Eastern, but I applied for the Inc. Unlimited yesterday and got approved for it, which I didn't think I would, because usually you got to wait. We talked about this. Yeah, we did. Now I remember.
Yeah.
Because you were saying that you got denied because you didn't wait until the following month to apply for the Chase card. And I didn't do that. I just sent it like 4 days later and luckily got approved. And then right after that went for the Built card and got approved for that one. So now I'm pretty well set for, like, I probably don't ever need any more cards, but of course that's not going to be stopping me.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
No, it's an addiction.
Yeah. I'm actually, man, it sucks because I had to miss the bonuses on that and the Hilton cards, because I'm not under 524 until March, which means I have to wait till April. So I'm just watching all these like super bonuses just float away into the wind.
Yeah, I didn't get to go for any of the Hilton cards. I would already have the business one if they would just already revamp the card and get the new bonus out there, but they haven't touched it. So I'm like, I'll just wait.
Yeah.
But
I actually thought about applying for that one now before they revamp it, to maybe get a year in at the cost now, because I'm sure they're going to raise the price.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet.
Yeah. The one thing that I wonder is, like, with them not changing it yet. So I don't know if Eric's talked about this. I don't want to like dox him or whatever, but he tried to apply for the Aspire card right before they made the changes, and they denied him, presumably because they're making the changes right then. So I have a feeling that they might do that with the business version. But theoretically, if they raise the annual fee, they're going to raise the bonus quite a bit with the new release. So it would wash, hopefully. But again, that's like $1 waiting on a dime, I guess. We don't know when they're going to change things.
Right. So you said before you did this, you were an engineer?
Yeah. I was I guess still technically am a civil engineer by degree, but I don't have the professional license for it. I would have to work like 4 years out of school to get that, and then take a bunch of tests and all that. But that's what I studied in college. Yep.
So what exactly does a civil engineer do?
Isn't that a great question? No, we, obviously getting into the engineering world, like going into college, I just kind of knew that I liked the idea of building things, like making things come to fruition, like based on nothing kind of thing. Like that's what I enjoyed, but I didn't want to be an architect. I knew that was like way too far in the weeds for me. Like I can't sit there designing that kind of stuff. And I knew engineering, it's a technical degree. It pays pretty well. So I was like, well, I'll go for an engineering degree. And I picked civil because it's technically like the most broad. Like you can do mechanical engineering, electrical, all that, like aerospace engineering, and that's all super specific. But civil is more like you could kind of touch every different discipline within engineering. So like water resources, you could do like geotechnical engineering, you could do all these different things within it, which is why I kind of liked it. And then going through school, of course, it's just a ton of math and physics and all this stuff where it's just an insane amount of work in that regard. But I didn't really have to do any writing or reading in school, so that was pretty cool.
Oh,
and then, well, I technically probably should have. They gave us textbooks, but I never read them, so there's that. But no, yeah. Then once I graduated, I realized that at least the job that I was working was with the land development firm, which is basically you produce the plans for construction for different projects. We did all kinds of things, like whether it be a neighborhood or we would work for like Home Depot a lot. So they'd have a Home Depot. They're like, oh, I want to put this in whatever. Say, you could say Austin just because I can't think of another city right now. But they're like, we need a Home Depot here in Austin. They give us the plat of the land and say like, yeah, y'all basically figure out how to make this work. So it was all day long in a software called CAD, or technically Civil 3D.
Yeah,
and it's just drawing lines on a screen all day, trying to make stuff work. So I got pretty burnt out of that pretty quick. I won't lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd also started this on the side. So eventually the income came to the point where I was like, well, let's take a risk and jump. And it's luckily worked out,
So what made you start the channel in the first place?
That's a good question. I think, so in general, I think I've always had like some kind of drive to want to, or I'm okay with putting myself on camera. And I think that's like a big just personality trait that is very beneficial, obviously, for a YouTube career. But whenever I was a kid, me and my friends would make skits and post them on YouTube, like stupid skits. Like I remember one we did was like Red Bull gives you wings. Like we made like our own ad for it, and we just like made stupid videos. And I was like literally like 7 or 8 years old or something like that. But we'd post them to YouTube, and like it was just normal. And then I played a lot of video games when I was growing up. So I'd make gaming videos. I'd literally be recording on my iPad, recording my TV screen. What is going on there?
I don't know. What is that?
That was crazy. I have no idea.
Where else? Wait a minute. Nope. I don't know.
That was wild. Well, I guess they're excited about that conversation.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I would literally take my iPad and record my TV screen of me like playing games like Skyrim and all this stuff. And then I would post it to YouTube. And some of those, funny enough, got like a good amount of views, like a few thousand views whenever it was the worst video ever. Yeah, so that's like my backstory when it comes to just being on camera and being comfortable with it. And then in college, I realized that there was a big opportunity to make a full-time career out of something like YouTube or just having an internet presence in general. So I figured, well, I was getting into the credit card game a little bit too, watching a ton of people do it. And I was like, well, I don't think I've ever seen somebody literally document from the very beginning, like what, I didn't have anybody necessarily speaking to my personal situation. I could get stuff from other people like Ben Hedges asks. I'd be like, they still have very good information for every, part of the credit card game, but nobody's showing you exactly how to do it like 1 or 2 steps ahead. So I was like, well, let me try to be that person for people. So yeah, I've always said like, I don't, pride myself on being the most knowledgeable, like having the most specific, like niche, information that you might not find anywhere else. Like I try to find stuff like that, but in reality, it's just me documenting my journey and what works for me. And that might not apply specifically to you, but I think that like, I hope it's more relatable than me just, giving you the information and the facts. So that's kind of how I've gone about my whole journey. Yeah.
Well, one thing I noticed about your channel and a couple of channels, more so than others, is regardless of what you're talking about, I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it is, but you're really easy to listen to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if it's your voice. Like, I'm not saying like you're like an ASMR artist or something like that, but your videos are like, I guess it's the pacing and just the casualness, maybe. I don't know what it is. But
that's a good compliment. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I do want to ask, and I'm afraid to ask because I'm afraid if the answer is yes, the answer is going to turn into no just by me asking. But
Uh-oh.
Are those early videos still on YouTube somewhere?
I've actually tried to find them so hard myself. So
Oh yeah.
I do think that there are a couple, and they're on my friend's old channel, but I think that they're like privated. Like I had to ask him to find them for me, and then he would send them to me. But I remember there was a few years back, we went through like a wild goose chase looking for these videos. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not able to like find them super easily. Like you can't search my name and they pop up or anything. I did have a gaming
Because
channel that you could do that with, but I privated that one.
yeah, because I'm sure your audience would love. I know I would love to see some of those. That'd be great.
Yeah, dude, it's a different time for sure. But yeah,
Okay, so you brought up Sebi and Ben Hedges. Were they your main influences when you started your channel, or?
yeah, I think as with everybody in the finance space, I would see what Graham Stephan was doing and be like, oh, that's kind of like
Mhm.
the northern star or whatever. Like that is the guiding light in all of the finance community. But I never have really had aspirations to be like him. Like I don't want necessarily even like millions of subscribers. Like that's not a goal of mine by any means. It's more just
Mhm.
like building a more like tight knit community that I'm able to do this full time, which is great. But I don't exactly want the fame that comes along with like everybody kind of knows who Graham Stephan is. Even if you don't talk to people that watch YouTube or finance YouTube, if you mention his name, they're like, oh yeah, I've at least heard of him, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But
If
as for the credit card space, yeah, definitely more like I watched a lot of Ben's stuff. I watched a lot of Ask Sebi, and then Daniel was getting started about whenever I did too, and he was probably the first person that I personally resonated with the most. And he was doing more of what I was talking about of like documenting his journey from the beginning. So I guess I shouldn't have said
Mhm.
that nobody was doing that because there are people that were. Um, but yeah, so it was like Daniel was out there. I was watching RJ. I was watching Mark Plymouth. I was watching all these people that I still watch today and get to talk to
Right.
on a daily basis, which is crazy. Um, but as for like style wise, I kind of wanted to do it, I guess, differently than everybody else. So in that sense, I probably most closely aligned with Daniel's style and still to this day kind of do. But yeah, and that's
And you're
Daniel
talking
Braun
about
if I didn't say
Daniel
that.
Braun, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
yeah.
Yeah, Daniel Braun, man, like, dude's amazing. He's got a fantastic channel, but I used to
Hmm.
laugh all the time. I don't think he's done it in a while, but he used to do these J cuts where he'd
Yeah.
be talking and then he'd start his next sentence from his next clip, but it would hang for like a
Oh, I
whole
know.
second or two on the first clip, and
Yeah,
it's just his mouth isn't moving, but the words are going. Oh
yeah.
man, it would make me laugh every time.
Yeah, it's funny. Now that you mentioned that, I remember that because I was like, oh, I needed to be doing some kind of J cuts. That was kind of like the thing whenever I got started is people, you look up videos like how to edit a
Yeah,
video basically and like make it entertaining. And J cuts was a big thing, which I guess you kind of just explained what it was. But for people that are like, what the heck are you talking about? It's literally basically that you bring the audio from the following clip onto the first one. And then that way, like transitions really smoothly, basically. But yeah, he would do like those longer pauses, and sometimes it was like
yeah.
we were just smiling at each other for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I have my master's in, journalism, and so we
Mm,
had to do video, and, we learned how to do J cuts, but it was always, like, the audio from the following clip would be added to, like, a clip of B-roll or something,
right.
not just you just sitting there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and, so then I got to the point where I would start, like, looking for it and hoping he would do it. It's
Hmm.
just one of those little things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you mentioned Mark Plymouth, you also, um you guys have a Discord that you run together, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
It's
the
me, Mark, and technically Daniel too.
oh, yeah. So
Hmm.
you're really kind of like you don't have your channel. This is like you're kinda spreading your roots into, like, a couple of different places.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a journey to do that for sure. That's why when people like ask me what I do, I don't think. I mean, yes, I am a YouTuber technically, but like that's not how I feel. That's not the only thing I feel like I do because there are a lot
Mhm.
of branches of the business. The Discord has been a really cool one. It's if y'all haven't seen it and you like the credit card stuff, it's the credit community, but we have like I don't know 5,000+ people in there that are from all different walks of life. And I joined late, so I didn't start this. Mark started this Discord by himself. And he brought Daniel on as well to help more with like the marketing of it and stuff. but Daniel's already such a big channel that he just doesn't have enough time for everything. So it's like he was kind of there to help out when he could. And then I actually don't even know whenever I got officially started. I'd have to go look through all the logs and stuff, but it's been a while now. Like I feel like I've been doing this for a long time. I joined with Mark to help him just run the actual day-to-day stuff because it's a lot. It's like just a lot of back and forth. Like we have all the mods and all of these admins and stuff like that help us with stuff, but still there's a lot of questions that only we can answer. And it's interesting. It's like running a completely different business, a lot of customer service really compared to YouTube. So it's been a journey there. And then of course, that's one of the branches, but we have a good amount of other ones too.
Yeah. I remember when Mark first announced his Discord, maybe top 10. I was like one of the first people to join it, know?
Yeah.
And it was just crazy seeing how like it kind of exploded. It was cool to see. And now I feel bad because I kind of somewhere along the lines, I transitioned from the credit community over to venture capital. And like, maybe I go into the credit community like once every couple of months now, but
I think that's honestly like, that's why I like being a part of multiple, because the credit community is so big that I can't even keep up. Like I can't just jump into a conversation because they have 100 messages with 20 different people talking, which is great in a sense. Like obviously you can get your questions answered right away. We have a paid tier so people can post their referrals, and some people max out their referrals every year from that. So like there's a bunch of cool opportunities within it. But as for like building a deep connection, you have to have something like Anthony's Discord where it's just a smaller amount of people, or RJ's Discord, or whoever. But yeah, I like the little bit of the best of both worlds. But whenever it comes to trying to build a relationship with the people in the Discord, a lot of it comes from like voice chats and stuff like that, where I'll just jump in and start talking to people rather than trying to jump into messages these days. But whenever I first got on there, it was like the same thing as Anthony's. Like you could talk to people like one-on-one all the time in the chats, and then it just kind of blew up, which is pretty crazy. But
it's cool. Good for him,
Yeah.
And then, so another aspect of your business is you also do credit consultations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a smaller branch, but it is one of the branches out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you a little bit more about that if you want me to, but
yeah, man, go for it.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting thing. I know we've talked about this, and I want to ask you the same thing, because I know you do consultations of your own. But this is something that I've recently kind of launched, I guess. And it's more of a way for me to just, okay, well, if you look at my channel from a bird's eye view, right now there's 15,000 people that are subscribed to me, which is crazy. But I cannot physically help every person one by one. Like with my videos, for example, like they have to be broad reaching videos that give value to a bunch of people, but to like really nail down on your specific situation. And I like to where I could recommend a specific card to you, not financial advice, but like if I was in your shoes, what I would do. I don't get that unless I can see your credit profile. I can see what cards you already have and all this stuff. People try to have me do that with them in the comments or through DMs, and I can help to a degree in that. But there's nothing like me sitting down with you like this for an hour and a half and us going through a spreadsheet of me saying like, what are your needs? What cards you already have? What can we, fill in here? And that's like what I wanted to capture with this. So it is a higher paid service just because I have to make it somewhat inaccessible in a sense to where it doesn't become like my everyday thing. I wish I could do them all for free. But it, again, is just like a branch of my business. It's not the main thing. And I do spend a lot of time on those calls. Like people see the price and like, oh my God, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like it is crazy for me to even charge stuff like that. But I'm spending 5-6 hours on one call, even outside of it, because I'm doing research after we talk and all this stuff. And I send you like all these final spreadsheets and stuff. So, but it is a fun thing. Like it's really nice to be able to connect with the community one-on-one. You don't get that as much as I used to, except for stuff in like Anthony's Discord or whatever.
Right. So do you want to tell people how they can find that? Or
yeah, I mean, it should be in the description of all of my videos. I mean, you can really find anything you want about me, whether that's a card link, like an affiliate link, or the consulting by going just to spencerjohnsonofficial.com/whatever. So in this case, /consulting, and you can find all the times you can book there. And I try to leave like my availability as open as possible. Like I work every day, obviously. Well, maybe that's not an obvious thing, but I work basically 7 days a week doing the YouTube stuff. I'm posting 2 times a week. And the only time that I don't have something blocked off is if I'm like doing something like this, where I literally can't
Right.
be on a call.
Right.
But even if I'm filming or scripting or whatever during the day, like I have open spots. So for people that need that extra help and want that one-on-one connection, you can find it there or in my video descriptions.
Cool. Yeah, I remember when you first mentioned that you were going to start doing it, I reached out to you because one of my businesses is I'm a personal finance coach. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, let me reach out, see if you have any questions, whatever. And surprisingly, you were like, yeah, can we talk? I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So then we had that conversation while I was at work and we talked for like an hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah, at
And
least. Yeah.
I remember when we hung up, I was sat back down and I was like, did I actually tell him anything helpful at all? Because you were focusing mainly on the, credit card consultation, and I
Right.
do that to some degree, but I'm like overall a financial coach. And I was like, it seemed like every question you asked, I was like, yeah, you could do that. I know as a general coach, this is what I do. And then I was
Right.
like, I just wasted like an hour and a half of his time. I felt bad when we hung up.
No, definitely not a waste of time. I learned a lot from that. I've one of my big goals just in general is to always just consume as much information about this business as I can, because it is such a weird thing where the fact that you even do something like that is pretty, like the chances of that are pretty low to run into somebody that also does something like that I want to. So anytime I can pick somebody's brain, it's valuable. This is a very interesting business that we're all in that not that many people do. So
For
yeah.
sure. And you meet a lot of interesting people who reach out and want to be clients. Sometimes it's
Right.
like, man, total from one end of the spectrum to the other. Some people reach
Yeah.
out to me and I'm just like, all right, cool. I'll get back to you.
Right.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe.
That's why I do tell people for my stuff, which I guess is a little bit different from yours, because I have this big funnel of people that I'm trying to, I guess, bring
Yeah.
into one thing. So I have that outreach, but I tell people to DM me on Instagram or on Discord first, and like, let's talk through what you're wanting to talk about, because I don't want to make you pay for something if we don't need to.
Right.
So a lot of times I will just like have people being like, hey, I was about to book a call, but can we talk about this real quick? And I'm just like, oh yeah, let's answer your question here. Do not pay for that, So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there's different
Um,
tiers to it, but it's cool.
so with all those different branches of your business, I
Mm-hmm.
just bumped the mic. Hopefully that didn't make like a loud thump. But
No.
um, yeah, so with all the different branches of your business, particularly being on YouTube, do you find it hard to strike a balance between like your public persona and your private life?
To a degree, I think there is that. I think that's a big reason why, like I said, my goal is never to be a massive, massive YouTuber. Like if I just got to Daniel's level of like 100,000 ish subscribers, like the range that Ask Sebby and all these people sit in, um, like I'd be more than content. I'm more than content with what I have now, but it's like, I think that you get to a point where, yeah, it's really hard to separate those things. And like you start getting
Mhm.
recognized and all this kind of stuff. And that just gets a little bit weird. Um, as for where I'm at right now, though, I don't think it's too hard for me to separate. I tried to like have my brand, or just it's weird calling it a brand, because what I want it to be is just me. Like us sitting here
Mhm.
talking, I want to feel exactly the same as one of my videos. Granted, I have a
Right.
little bit more energy and stuff whenever I'm on camera, but I don't. I really try to not exaggerate it, because that just makes things fake. But if we had a
Mhm.
call offline versus you sitting in the room with me versus being on camera, I want it to all flow the same, so I don't have to have that separation. Like it's just me, and
Right.
that's kind of been my biggest goal. I mean, when it comes to personal stuff, I generally just the only reason I don't share a lot of it, at least in the public sphere of like my normal videos, with my community members, I do, or my members, I do share a lot more personal stuff. But that's just because of retention and like video
Yeah.
performance. Like people just don't care to hear it as much. But
Right.
uh,
Right. Um, well, I'd asked you getting ready for this, are there any boundaries, any things you don't want to talk about? And you basically said like, no, man, I'm an open book, which is cool. I appreciate
yeah,
that. Thank you. Because
yeah,
that's kind
yeah,
of what the whole Beyond podcast is about. Just trying to get, you know, as personal as possible up to a limit. I mean, I don't want to get into like
right,
people's business, but
right.
so with that said, let's jump into probably a big one for anyone who's been following you for a while.
Hmm.
You had was she just your girlfriend or were you guys actually engaged? Was she your
No,
fiance?
no, just a girlfriend. Yeah,
Just a girlfriend, yeah. And she even made a cameo appearance in one of your videos, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, one day, she was just gone. Can you tell us what happened there?
Right. Yeah. So it's it's an interesting time, I think, for us in general. Just for reference, like, yeah, I was in college is when me and her had met, and we were together for like 3+ years. So tracking towards that marriage side of things, obviously, like there's not too many ways you can go at that point. But we had, been living in the same area in Austin for the past 4 years, and then things started to change where I graduated, started working, and then quit my job to do this. She started working as well, but then was looking to move back home to Houston where she lived. And so we kind of split ways for a little bit. And I think that time apart kind of let us, think a little bit more about like, what do we really want in the future here? And when we saw that they weren't exactly aligning, it kind of just led to that crossroads of like, well, which way are we going to go? And we decided to not take it any further just for lack of pain in the future. And, it took a while, obviously, to get used to, or I guess unused to all the habits that I had built up for the last 3.5 years. Like you spend every, second with this one person for 3.5 years. And then you're like, well, now that's gone. So you got to break all those habits. And then after that, month or so of just getting through those emotions, I was able to kind of just be like, okay, well, what's next? And that was before I had moved to this new apartment. Now I have this place, which before we were broken up, it was kind of like, I just had no idea what I was going to do. I was thinking maybe I would move to Houston because I was the one without a normal job. So I could kind of work for wherever, but I didn't really want to move to Houston. Maybe that's part of the reason why it didn't work out, but no, but it was just like, there's a lot of things out like floating in the air where it's like, I don't know, do I want to talk about marriage right now? Do I want to move to a completely different city and do all these things? But now once like that kind of ended, it was like, well, I can make these decisions purely based on myself and like what I want for my life. That's going to allow me to do things like move here, going to allow me to do things like travel as much as I want to this year, which I wouldn't have been able to do before, make the channel better for people because I'm traveling and doing stuff like that. So I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason, just based personally on my faith. So for me, yeah, I think at the end of the day, like I'm happy that it happened, but it definitely was a difficult thing just because obviously you spend so much time with one person. It just becomes like your normal mode of life,
Yeah. And you guys were together for how long, did you say?
I think like technically like 3.5 years. So
yeah. So that's pretty good. That's a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
But when you guys part, it was mutual. Everything was copacetic for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as it could be for a breakup.
Right. Yeah. It was weird in the sense of like, there wasn't one big fight or something that led to us breaking up, there was no like forcing function besides the fact of just like thinking forward and what is going to happen if we keep going down this path. So like, it's a weird thing. It made it really difficult because it was like, well, do we really want to do this? Do we need to do this?
Yeah.
But by the end of it, yeah, it was definitely a mutual thing where we were like, okay, yeah, this is the right move. And, really kind of after that point, talk like one other time just to like settle everything. Like that big road trip I went on for the channel, or not for the channel, that was supposed to be for both of us. But I was like, well, we booked all these non-refundable stays. I'm still going. And I made videos out of it. But like that stuff we had to settle. And then after that, we haven't talked since. And I think that's the best way to do it. And when it comes to those kind of things, because just didn't have to worry about all those weird, I don't know. I've had a lot of friends that they break up with their significant other and then they like still talk. And it's like one of the most like toxic things that happens. And I was like, I just do not want that. So it's been really good since then, but yeah.
That's funny because a lot of people I know who were in serious relationships and then like mutually decided to split up, they take a period of time where they don't talk, but eventually they actually end up becoming really good friends. From what I've seen, Yeah. And I'm not saying that to like cast judgment either way or say either one is right or wrong. It's just in my experience, that's what I've seen. I've been married almost 20 years now. And it's been amazing. Yeah, I know my wife is going to be watching as it has been the best 20 years of my life.
There you go.
But yeah, about that road trip you took, the one where you literally drove within 5 miles of my house and didn't reach out or anything, Anyway.
Who knew? I don't know. That's probably on me though.
Yeah. Well, at the time, I think I think I only had like one short up at the time. You probably didn't even, well, no, I was going to say you probably didn't even know who I was at the time, but we had already talked about a couple of things.
Yeah, no, yeah, and through
So,
comments and everything.
yeah.
Yeah, I've known.
Okay.
But
So with
my bad.
that out of the way, no worries. Um, with that out of the way, what would you say is the coolest thing you have ever done in your entire life?
Oh God. The coolest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
That I'm not gonna be able to pin that down exactly, but I can talk about at least some of my favorite memories that I think are pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think in reality, a lot of it comes back to times where I've been traveling, because
Mhm.
I just have some of the most memorable experiences when I'm not just doing my normal day to day routine. So the one that sticks out to me the most right now is I went on a trip. So I have an uncle, right? And then I have two guy cousins that my uncle's kids. And other than that, I have like no like guys in my entire family, really. Like I'd never had any, like I have sisters, or I have a sister
Mhm.
and then stepsisters and all this stuff growing up. So it was like the only male influence, because also my parents were divorced, so keep this all in mind. But basically, the only guys I spent time with were like my guy cousins and my uncle. He takes us on a big trip every year. We went to the Cayman Islands this one year and got like our scuba licenses and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
And that was like one of my favorite experiences. The whole process of getting the license too was like very difficult, which I didn't realize it was going to be. And I was also like 14 or something at the time, maybe older than that, but maybe like 16. But so we did that whole thing, and it was kind of like a good brought us together a little bit because it was pretty scary. I don't know if you ever, this is kind of a side tangent, but I guess that's what we're here for. It's a podcast, right? But
Right.
I don't know if you've ever gotten your scuba license. Do you have it?
No, it's one of the things where I've always wanted to and I've always planned to, and then something always comes up,
Yeah.
something else has to take priority and I just don't get the time.
Right.
Um, Either that and my pilot's license are the two big ones that I'm
Mm,
always like, I got to get these, like, I got to make this happen, especially now that I'm getting older. I'm 43. I'm like, my
right.
time's running out, man. I got to get this stuff
Well,
done. But
yeah. I mean, it is a cool experience for sure. The pilot's license thing is cool. My stepbrothers are both getting their pilot's license right now. Fun fact.
oh,
But
yeah, cool, cool.
yeah, they also work completely for themselves, so they have the freedom to be able to do stuff like that, which they didn't have before. They were also engineers
Yeah.
too. So my stepdad always jokes that he put 3 engineers through college and none of them use their degree. So
Mm,
I'm included in that, but he
yeah.
thinks it's funny because we're all doing better, I guess, than before. But the scuba stuff was really cool. But part of the whole process of becoming certified is you have to go through like the taking your mask off, taking your respirator out, and everything while you're like underwater, like as far down as you can go. And in the practice times, we did that like 10 feet deep, and it like all of us had to like jump back up for air because we just sucked in so much water trying to like put it back on and clear it and all that.
Oh,
And
man.
then when it comes to the actual test, though, you're like, I was like 60 feet under, or like 40 meters under, something like that. And the guy told us before we went down, he was like, "You physically, I cannot let you come to the top. Like you'll die if you do that. So I have to hold you
Right.
down and hold the mask in your mouth or the respirator in your mouth." And I remember that being like, "This is gonna suck."
Yeah.
And then we went down and he pointed to me first and I had to do it. And luckily it was all fine and we all passed. But so that part was fun. And then the actual scuba diving was cool too. Like going to see all these like sunken ships. And we did a night scuba dive as well, which was kind of crazy, like a little flashlight and you're seeing
Yeah.
eels and octopus and all this stuff. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, that's probably one of my favorite experiences, but there's a lot of cool ones out there, I guess.
Yeah. Can you hear my dog barking right now?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's protecting us from the mailman or the neighbor's cat or something. I don't know.
That's what dogs are good for.
Right.
Odin hasn't piped up yet.
Yeah, because once you go down too far, if you come back up, you get the bends, right?
Yeah, right. So he was
Which
like,
is
yeah, it was definitely a frightening thing to hear from the guy where he's like, "I'm going to hold you down underwater and force this in your mouth,
right.
so don't mess up." Basically, it's like, oh my god,
Right.
man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And the bends, for anybody that doesn't know, is that's what if you come up too quick because of the pressure you get, is it nitrogen in your blood?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, you get, and then it like basically just like compresses or something and just basically kills you. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Scary
it's
stuff,
crazy.
man.
Yeah.
So is that forgetting about all that stuff, just going down in the water that deep and being basically in like a whole different world
Mhm.
with God knows what that can kill you down there. Is that just kind of, did that ever creep you out?
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the open ocean, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable whenever I'm out there.
Right.
You know, I think the biggest reason I was comfortable is because we have guides, right? Like, we had a guide at least that was helping us, then they have their boat, so, like, they're tracking us at all times, so I felt safe in that regard. Um, but yeah, like, didn't swim with any sharks or anything like that. I wouldn't
Mm.
probably want to do that, at least, like, you know, aggressive sharks, but we did see some whenever we were down low, but they were, like, all the nurse sharks and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the thing that freaked me out the most was that to get into the water to go scuba diving, you sit on the edge of the boat and you just fall backwards. And when you're in the
Right.
open ocean, that is to me a freaky thing to be like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's under me, but I'm just going to drop in. Especially when you see
Right.
all these movies and Shark Week and all this stuff where you're like, oh, there's a
Right.
shark right under here, isn't there? But
Right.
obviously it was
Dude,
all fine.
people laugh at me or just flat out don't believe me when I tell them, for me, Jaws is the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Jaws freaks me out, especially that opening scene with the girl and the buoy. Man,
Right.
that messes with me.
Yeah. We just don't know enough about the ocean for me to feel comfortable with it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I remember one time when my wife was pregnant with our first child, my daughter. Her dad used to have a boat, and we were right off the coast of Florida out there. We weren't out too far,
Hmm.
um, and we, jumped in and were swimming around. Which, at the time, I was just kind of pretending I was cool with it. I was freaking out the whole time. But my
Right.
wife was pregnant and she got sick and threw
Mm.
up like right there where we were. And I'm like, nope, that's chum. I'm out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I was like,
Ah,
come on,
dude.
let's go. Helped her back in the boat. Then I got in the boat and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. I get that, dude. The ocean, it's freaky to me at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So the opposite,
Hmm.
what is the dumbest thing you think you've ever done in your life?
That I can share on YouTube.
Yeah. Keep it PG.
Huh. Yeah, I know. The dumbest thing I've done. Man, that's a good question. You really come with the hard hitting ones. I'm gonna have so many pauses in here. Uh I can't think of anything like extremely dumb that I've done where like I felt like I was gonna die or something. I've never done anything like skydiving or anything like that where I think some people would say that's pretty dumb. I mean, probably one of the most like dangerous things I've done besides like zip lining through like Belize and stuff where it's like a, completely different uh like I mean it's a different country obviously, but just it's not the US where it's super regulated. That's what I was going for. It's not a very
Right. Right.
regulated stuff where you're going on these zip lines, like don't really feel that safe, but that was also really, really cool. Um, that might have been pretty dangerous. But me and my friends are growing up, we would always go cliff jumping and stuff like that. Like that's
Oh,
one of
yeah.
my favorite pastimes. Like we have a bunch of lakes out here, so we'd go cliff jumping, and that can get really dangerous if you're not checking below you first and stuff. And
Right.
I never got close to like hitting a rock or anything, but we'd be trying to like do tricks and stuff off the top of these cliffs, and you get to a point where sometimes you're getting a little too close to the rocks and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the dumbest. Pretty fun. I guess that's the most like we do a lot of adrenaline seeking things. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm out when it comes to any of that, like rapidly not being as high as you were a couple of seconds ago, that kind of stuff. I'm out.
Yeah.
Especially because like you just get on YouTube for like a minute and like no matter what it is, you see something go wrong with all these. You see bungee cords snap. The
Right.
what's it called where they have the ball that you sit in and there's two bungee cords and it launches you up. You see like videos where that
I don't even know
cord
what that.
snaps before they even
Yeah.
get launched up. I'm like, this is no way, man.
Yeah. You put a
And
lot
I'm a
of trust in
veteran.
these harnesses.
Yeah, I'm a veteran. And they were like, do you want to go airborne? I'm like, no, no, I don't
Yeah.
even like being in planes. I don't want to jump out of one.
Yeah.
No.
Man. Well, can you tell me at least more about that? I don't know if you've talked about it before, you being a veteran, but I don't know if we've even talked about that much.
Yeah, no. I haven't really talked about it much, not intentionally, just I don't think it's ever come up.
Right.
There's not honestly a whole lot to it. Um to be totally honest, I always wanted to join the military.
Hmm.
But I never did until probably the worst possible time. and my intentions were good,
Right.
but good intentions are like the path to hell or whatever the saying is. I
Yeah.
probably messed that up, but um, my wife had gotten pregnant, and at the time, I didn't feel like financially we were where I wanted to be to feel
Mhm.
comfortable to like add a child to our family.
Right.
So I was like, well, let me join the Army Reserve. It'll be
Mhm.
reserve. It'll just be 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. It'll just be a little extra income, no big deal. I won't sign up for a job that's dangerous.
Right.
So I ended up I bumped it again. I ended up signing up as a supply specialist at my local
Mhm.
reserve unit. So I go to basic training, I go to AIT. My first drill at my unit, the drill got orders. We were shipping out to Iraq. I was like, "Are you
Oh my
freaking
gosh.
kidding me?" So my daughter was born, um, and I think she was like a month and a half old, and I left to go to
Wow.
Iraq for the first
Uh,
time. That was 2004. Come home, she has no idea who I am, basically. So
mhm.
when I first came home, it was weird for her. She had to get used to me. She had to
Right.
learn that I was her dad. 4 years later, my wife gets pregnant again with our son, and I get deployed again.
Oh
So
my god.
2004, 2008. So I was like, okay, so we can't have any more kids because every time we
Yeah.
have a kid, I get deployed. And election years are bad for me. Anytime I have a kid and it's an election year, I'm getting deployed.
Mm.
Um, but I came back from that one, and then I was able to ride out the rest of my contract and not get deployed again. Um,
Gotcha.
and that was pretty much it. I mean, my first tour, I was at a place called Camp Buka, which, if you remember in 2004, the Abu Ghraib thing was the big thing. It was all over the news,
Yeah, I was too
with the
young probably,
prisoners.
but
Yeah. So the
I
Abu
was only
Ghraib thing,
4, so
for anyone who doesn't know, the Abu Ghraib thing was pictures had come out basically of, Iraqi prisoners of war being abused and humiliated. And so then, there was this big push about, well, oh, look, we're like letting all these prisoners go. We're
right.
letting them all, um, which, I don't know what I can or can't say. It's so far removed. I'm
Right.
probably okay. But um, we were letting a lot go, but they weren't necessarily all coming from Abu Ghraib.
Mhm.
Camp Buka was an enemy prisoner of war camp towards the south. And I spent that year basically convoying prisoners from that camp up to Abu Ghraib so that the
Mhm.
cameras could see them being released from there. So that's how I spent my
Interesting.
first year over there. And
Wow.
it sucked because we're in a convoy of all these, like, we had just got up armored vehicles,
Mhm.
but I'm right in the middle of the convoy in just like a bus.
Right.
So there's all these armored vehicles in front and behind me, and I'm just
Yeah.
like in this, soft target bus, like the biggest thing, the easiest thing to hit.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Um,
Gosh. That's
and then in
crazy though.
2000, yeah, yeah, in 2008, I got attached to a CID unit, which is, the Criminal Investigation Division. I think that's what it stands for, of the MPs. And so we traveled all around the country, or traveling from fob to fob, setting up forensics labs. So that was
Mm.
cool because I got to see like a lot of, uh, I don't know, neat stuff there. I got to learn a lot about how forensics works, and I got to see like the Iraqi police and the people who are trying to take control of the country on that end, like
Yeah.
learn how to do all that stuff. So that was pretty neat.
Interesting.
That was also when I pretty much like threw out my back and my knees, just because
Mm.
setting up a forensic lab, there's a lot of heavy equipment we're carrying, and over there, it kind of makes sense to me, but it also doesn't make sense over there. Like on the fobs, like they covered the ground with all this gravel.
Mm.
Right. So it makes sense in the sense that you don't want the dust always kicking up and so, oh, dude, dust storms over there are insane. It's like being
Really?
on Mars. Yeah, it's
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
Um, but so I get that they don't want that, but at the same time, like, if rockets or mortars come in, you take
Yeah.
what's just an explosion by itself, and now you're basically adding like all this shrapnel to it.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
That's true.
I mean, smarter minds than me knew what they were doing, but in my
Right.
little, E5 sergeant mind, I'm like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so carrying all that heavy equipment, on that gravel, I tweaked my ankle and my knee and my back so many times I can't even remember.
Man.
Anyway, that was my long, boring army story.
No, that's not boring at all. I mean, thank you for your service. I guess I really didn't even know. I don't think we've ever
Yeah.
talked about that. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I don't talk about it much. I don't really know why. And now I'm just finally starting to, well, like we've trying to get this scheduled. One of the things that's been holding us back a couple of times is me going to the VA, because
Hmm.
I got out of the army in 2012. It's 2024 now. I
Yeah.
waited till the end of 2023 to finally start going to the VA because
Mm.
I don't know, because I'm dumb. I don't know.
That makes sense. Whenever you told me that, I guess I didn't even put two and two together that you
Yeah.
must have served at some point.
Yeah.
But no.
Okay. So let's move on. What is your least favorite thing about yourself?
Whew. I think one of the things that I wish I could change a little bit is I think that I personally just have a hard time of like ever being like proud of myself or satisfied in general. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like I feel like I'm always a little bit too hard on myself, probably. Like I don't exactly ever stop and smell the roses in a way.
right.
Um, that's something that I've figured out recently, especially like just with even like the success of the YouTube, like we're talking about here, like in a vacuum. Like I have a hard time, like whenever these milestones come up where I hit like 15,000 subscribers, for example, recently, it just like, it's awesome. And I can sit there for a second and be like, this is crazy. And whenever I like write up my posts and stuff like that to thank people, like that's the only time that I really feel like happy about it. But it's never like I'm not proud of myself. It's more of like I'm just super thankful and like I feel like lucky and blessed that somebody would want to watch my stuff. And I think that applies to all aspects of my life. Like when it comes to working out and stuff like that, like I'm never really satisfied with how I look or what, weights I'm lifting or all that kind of stuff. And I always just have that in the back of my mind. And that's something that I don't know, I guess I've realized more recently, um, just by taking the time to be a little bit more like mentally just present in general. That's a big thing that I've been
Mhm.
trying to do the last couple of years. And I think also since the breakup too, that kind of brings a lot of your insecurities out where I'm like, who am I really without this other person in my life?
Right.
Um, so yeah, I've been trying to deal with a lot of that stuff recently. And I've gone through episodes in the past where I have been like depressed and like gone to therapy and all these things, but it's never really stuck with me in the sense of like that I think about it on a daily basis other than in those settings. So I've been really trying to like bring this into my daily life to be like, how can I personally get better? And what do I want to become? Like I never really ask myself that whenever I'm in a relationship or living with
Mhm.
other people. Like there's always distractions, So this year, and I should say like 2023, the end of it, been really trying to focus more on that stuff. But that's one of them for sure. I think I'm also a perfectionist. That's another thing that I don't hate that about myself. I don't even hate necessarily that I am never satisfied, like if you put it in that terms, but it does cause a lot of issues sometimes in life, especially the perfectionist side of things.
Yeah.
Um, but the same thing, like I said earlier, like not only are all my personality traits like have they turned me into who I am today, but all of my past experiences that might have been traumatic or what have you, like it brings me to this present moment. So I'm thankful for all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you're the kind of person looking back, having been in a serious relationship,
Hmm.
do you think you're the kind of person who maybe even unconsciously, probably unconsciously, I think is how most people do it, kind of sacrifice and give up who you are as an individual for the other person?
Yeah. I think to a degree, yes. Like the fact that I could still do things like while I was in that relationship, such as quit my job and do something like as, you know, breaking my stability as much as that, you could say, or taking big leaps like that, I think I was still able to do. And that is also a product of, I think, who you're with in a sense. Like, I do think that
Mhm.
relationship gave me some more independence than, like, say, my first relationship did. First real relationship, I should say. So I think who you're with plays a big factor in that. Um, but I do Like when I'm in a relationship, I'm fully in it. Like I commit to things pretty hard, I guess you could say. Like
Mm,
I don't kind of like halfway go into anything. So
mhm,
in that regard, yeah, like when it comes to even like my personal life, like with my friends and family, I sacrifice a lot of that whenever I'm in a relationship because I'm trying to spend all my time with this person and all of
mm,
that. So that's been something that's also been interesting to find since the breakup is like basically not like I never talk to my friends and stuff like that, but I never talk to them on a daily basis when I get on phone calls with them and do everything I could to like try to see them when they're around. Like that wasn't me when I was in a relationship because I was giving that up. But now
mm.
it's like I like live and breathe like these guys that I've grown up with and just really kind of neglected for those years to a degree. Obviously, like I didn't just not not talk to them at all, but hopefully that
Right.
makes sense. But yeah,
Do you think while you were in that phase, do you think your friends were kind of like, dude, like,
yeah,
where are you at?
maybe I think in the beginning, yes, I think it becomes everybody's new norm though, to a
Mhm.
degree. Also, I was only really seeing one of them, like from high
Mm.
school at least, like my good buddies, because I lived with him through college. So he was the only one. But then also like I'd be doing stuff with him and my ex girlfriend at the same time. Like she would come to our place and he was there, kind of thing. But like one on one dedicated things, yeah, those kind of went away. But then, yeah, like I said, all my friends, I went to colleges in different states and stuff too. Like I had two of my really close friends that I hang out with a lot now, and obviously did in high school. They played football at the Colorado School of Mines, and then one of them went to Clemson, and then other ones were at like A&M and stuff like that, Texas A&M. So like the only person in the city with me was one of my really good buddies, and I think he did feel like the brunt of that whenever we started dating, because especially in like that honeymoon phase, it's like, well, everything is for this one person.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, eventually we kind of, I mean, we're like still best friends, but this is a completely, again, different kind of thing, but it is, I think, kind of interesting in the sense of like people that might be college age. I don't know if they go through this kind of stuff, but I went to college with my friend from middle and high school, which a lot of people say you probably shouldn't do because you might not be friends after that, especially living together
Right.
and stuff. Um, and luckily we did stay friends really throughout it all. But our junior year, we ended up moving apart, which was a very difficult thing to do, honestly. It was like, hey, I actually don't think we should live together this next year, which is, yeah, it was an interesting conversation and all that. And I'm actually really glad we did that because now we're like closer than ever. And I don't think we would have been
Yeah,
if we kept living together. So,
yeah.
little relationship fun stuff there.
Yeah, was it like in people's little things start to like add up when you're around each other all the time? Was it kind of like that? Like when you're just hanging out here and there and whatever, but you can go your separate ways. Like they don't really bother you, but then when you're forced to face them all the
Right.
time, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think it was just the habits that we didn't align on some of our like habits and stuff, basically. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying any names here, so I guess I can say more of, but he would just like, he was partying like all the time. And I was like, well, I wasn't trying
yeah,
to do that all the time. And then like whenever, if he would come back like super hammered or something and I had to basically take care of him, like that kind of stuff would add up over time. And
right,
then just like who he would hang out with outside of me, I was like, I just can't be living with these kind of people. And then I think that helped him a lot too, because then he lived by himself and really figured himself out. And then I did the same,
yeah,
but living with somebody different. And yeah, like I said, now, like if he's moving back, he wants to move back in this area. He lives in Colorado now, but um, like I'm stoked for him to do it. Like every time I see him, I'm so happy to see him, So
yeah, yeah. That's
yeah,
good. That's good.
right.
So I want to go back to something you said that we had talked about a little bit in the past, and we both said we suffer from it. The
Hmm.
perfectionism thing. Do you find that that can actually hinder you on a day-to-day basis with some stuff like your channel, like putting together videos? Do you find like eventually you just get to the point where you're like, I'm not happy with it. I'm never going to be happy with it, but I just need to put it out because if I don't, it'll never go out.
Yes, definitely. I think that was a bigger issue for me in the past whenever I was having full control over everything on my channel. And now that I have
Mm,
people that help me edit and do the thumbnails and the videos and stuff like that and help me with all of these things, I've learned to let go of this more. And I think so. I've read a lot, like I read all the time. That's like a big part of my life. But I don't even know where I got this from. It could have even been from YouTube. But basically, just getting to the point where it's like, okay, if it's like 80% of the way there, that's good enough. Like, you just need to stop thinking about it so much. And I think I spent so much time in the beginning stages of my channel focusing on that final like 5% even, where the gains from that point don't even matter. Like, nobody's going to notice them. Like, I'm spending all this time over this like millisecond of an edit. It's like, nobody cares about that. They're not even watching it. They're just listening to it, you know?
Yeah.
So I've definitely developed the habit of being less of a perfectionist when it comes to the channel. And I think that's also a product of me posting more, like doing 2 videos a week. I don't have time to worry about the small stuff anymore. Like, if that looks basically exactly how I want it to, but it's a little bit off, that's fine. I don't care. We'll take it. But I think,
so have you ever found out that consciously letting go and just putting something out, has that ever backfired for you?
no, not in the sense we're, staying with YouTube. Not really thinking about outside of that, but I don't think so. And, it's funny, the way that I think about it now too is like, for example, if there was a spelling mistake or something on one of my, screens, the only thing that would produce is maybe a comment, but the more comments you get, technically the better for the algorithm. So
right.
it's really all good for you at the end of the day. I mean, maybe some people are like, oh, this guy, maybe they lose some like respect. I don't know, think I'm less intelligent or something, but I don't think that happens. I don't think people care enough. But yeah, it hasn't really backfired for me yet, at least. I think people would rather see more content than less, that's 5% better.
Right.
So
yeah, well, that's why my last episode with RJ, I had gotten to the point where I was like, all right, I just need to put it out. And then at some point, I don't know what happened, but the on the timeline, the couple of images that I had put up got shifted on the timeline.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So like, I was asking RJ, who he follows or something like that. And he brought up a couple of YouTubers, and I didn't realize it until after I had uploaded. I still don't know how it happened to this day, but I had it so the pictures came up when he said the name, but somehow they jumped to like 20 seconds before he said the name. And I did one of the censorship beeps when he cursed. So I did a censorship beep that jumped too. So I realized it after I uploaded it, and I talked to you, and you're like, hey, there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe like pin a comment and explain it and then just let it go. So that's what I did. That was frustrating.
I know exactly how you feel. I've done that in the past where I've made mistakes. I'm like, golly, man. And I think the best mode of action or course of action is just to pin a comment. And because the people that do catch that, they're going to look at the comments right away to go try to make you feel bad or something. But then they'll see the top one and be like, oh, he's already covered it. I have no power. But I do think it's a super freeing thing, getting to the point where you're like, you just don't associate so much with the final product. And I've gotten to the point now where I care very little about how the video performs after it's out. And I think that's also a product of this, like, losing the perfectionism side of things, or just the control is really what it is. Like, I just want control over everything, which that's probably a bad personality trait in general. I don't think I have that in relationships. I will say that. Like, I'm not saying I'm sitting there controlling everybody I'm with, but when it comes to like my work and stuff, I've had like I think I tie my identity too much into it. And I think I've loosened that a lot this year because of the frequency and just, just really learning that at the end of the day, kind of like I said, it's just, I was worried so much about stuff that only other maybe YouTubers would see. And it's like at that point, who really cares? I think like my real fans, or like the real people that come here to watch my content every week, they don't care about small stuff like that. And so I've tried to take that with me everywhere I go now. But I assume if I went down to one video a week or whatever again, and I had more time to look at the analytics, I'd get a little bit more wrapped up in them. But right now, I really don't even look at them at all. I'm just like, well, I did everything I could on the prep stage, and now it's not in my control what happens. So why do I care?
Right. Well, and there's probably like a fine line too, because my big concern is I always want to come across as professional, like I know what I'm doing, whatever. Obviously. But then the flip side of that is like a little mistake here or there probably also could benefit you in the sense that it like humanizes you to your audience.
Agreed.
So, and that's probably like a fine line, because I mean, there obviously would be cases where I'm like, all right, this dude's not even trying. You don't want that to come across. But okay, so now let's slide into my rapid fire favorites. And this is the part where everyone is supposed to just answer with the first thing that pops into their head, but no one actually does. So
we
let's see
got
how
to
you
censor
do.
ourselves a little bit. I'll try to do it quickly.
Okay. Normally I start with a different one, but since you brought up that you like reading, what is your favorite book?
One that I've probably learned the most from off the top of my head is Atomic Habits. Like I read that one and I feel like that was one that actually genuinely changed my life. So that's probably
Yeah,
my answer there.
that's a good one. That's a good one.
A thumbs
There it
up.
goes again. No, that
See if
doesn't
you
do
can
it for
get
me.
it.
It doesn't like me. Okay, favorite movie.
Ooh, Harry Potter is my favorite book and movie series. So any of those
Oh,
probably. Yeah.
all right. Favorite song.
Favorite song right now, I'm listening to a lot of Zach Bryan. So really any of his songs. I like Hey Driver by Zach Bryan right now.
Okay, what about favorite song of all time?
Dude, I'm probably not a good person to ask that. I'm not like somebody that's very musically inclined.
Yeah.
This is a side tangent. I guess it's not a quick fire thing, but I recently found like one of my old playlists from like 2016. So for me, that's whenever I was like in high school or whatever. And
Yeah.
I've been listening to that so much. Like it was all my basketball playlists, like before I would go play games, like get me hyped up. So
Yeah.
I'm starting to find some old ones that I liked a lot, but those are all like rap based stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, favorite food.
Favorite food. I really like my favorite meal is probably salmon with like
Ooh,
rice and broccoli. Yeah, simple.
okay. Does it matter what kind of salmon? Because I just found out that there's like 8 different kinds of salmon.
No, I didn't know there was a different kind. Whatever I can
Yeah.
get. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Okay, favorite vacation spot.
I would say probably vacation spot. I guess maybe the beach, like in general. But maybe you'll ask this later, so I don't want to cover you too much. But the I think like my favorite thing to do in general is like a lake day, like water sports, wakeboarding, wake surfing, that
Okay.
kind of stuff.
Okay.
So if that's a vacation, you can call it that. That'd be my favorite.
Okay. Remind me when we're done with the favorites. I got a question about that.
Okay.
Um, favorite thing to do on a lazy Sunday afternoon.
Oh God. I like walking Odin around, like going outside, spending time outside with Odin, and
Mm,
usually reading and watching YouTube. Really,
okay. And favorite sports team.
the Longhorns. I mean, college wise, Texas is like everything to me. I really like college sports more than professional, but if you want me to run through all of them, I got the Longhorns on the college side, Spurs, San Antonio Spurs on NBA, Dallas Cowboys on football, and Texas Rangers baseball. Those are the
Okay.
big ones. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's it for the favorites.
Is that
The
quick
water
enough?
sports thing. Yeah. I don't know. It's all
Dang
right.
it.
I'd probably be the worst one, honestly. If somebody did that to me, I'd be the worst one. Um, so what is the thing called? It looks like a wakeboard, but it's got like a long shaft that hangs from the bottom,
Oh,
and then like a smaller wakeboard that stays under the water, and you just kind of like, what is that called?
yeah. That's a hydrofoil or like a foil or
Hydrofoil.
something like that. Yeah. I think
Okay.
like that's what the piece is called, but yeah. I've never done one of those actually.
Yeah. To
Um,
me, being in South Florida, I see them all the time, and to me, that just looks like more work than fun because you're constantly like having it's like just
right.
doing squats out in the middle of the water for however long you're out there. That's what it
I
looks like
guess
to
you
me
don't
anyway.
need a boat. That's the biggest thing is you don't need a boat for it, right? You could just do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's probably the appeal of it. But no, I like a boat. Pull me so I can
Yeah.
do whatever I want, really.
Yeah. Well, like we established, I just don't like being out in open water.
Yeah, the ocean at least. The lakes don't bother me though.
Yeah.
Which there are some lake monsters out there, so I guess I should be more worried. But
Yeah. Did you ever see that movie called Lake Placid about the
mm-mm.
giant alligator?
No, I don't think
It's
so. But
older. Yeah.
I kind of know what you're talking about. But no, I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah. That one freaked me out too.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so a couple of things you touched on earlier. You said you're a gamer.
yeah. Still a gamer at heart, really. I mean, that's probably to revise part of my Sunday, lazy Sunday. I do like playing video games with my friends like once a week if I can, just to like catch up with them because, like I said, we still live in different states,
Yeah.
a lot of us. So, but yeah, like growing up, I played stuff like Skyrim, like I mentioned. I would film myself playing that kind of stuff, which is like an open world kind of game if people aren't
Right.
familiar, but not like GTA, but I guess kind of like medieval GTA or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, But I also like always played like first person shooters. Like Call of Duty is what I grew up playing. So
Right.
that's really like all I do. And then when Fortnite was big, I was playing that. These days people are still playing it. It's like my friends that play that, I'll jump on with them, but it's usually
Yeah.
like Call of Duty, Apex Legends, Fortnite, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So console or PC master race?
I think I used to be Xbox only, and like I feel like I was really like a good player on a console, and then I got into college and like started making a little bit of money, I guess, and ended up getting a PC. So now I'm PC only.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
use my console at all. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, what's good about PC and Xbox is you can get one game on one and keep playing it on the other. I love that. That's
right.
awesome.
Yeah,
Not that I
especially
actually have
like
time to play video games anymore, but if I did,
yeah,
that would be great.
yeah, and they're also all the games are cross-platform to the point where like I
Yeah.
play all my friends are on Xbox. I'm like the only PC player, but we play all
Yeah.
these games together. There are games where I will play controller, like I'll plug my controller in, and that's like Rocket League and stuff like that, or like any
Right.
like 2K, like NBA 2K and all that stuff. I'll play with a
Yeah.
controller, but I don't even own those. That's more of like a group game we play together.
So do you for shooters like Call of Duty, do you still use keyboard and mouse?
Yeah, yeah. I switched to that, and that was a good step up.
Do you almost feel like you're cheating when you're playing against people with a controller?
To a degree, except sometimes the luck factor when it comes to controller players is a lot higher than with PC, because with PC you don't have any aim assist or anything. But there are some
Right.
times where I'm playing a game and I'm like, dude, that guy's aim assist just brought his, his cursor or whatever you want to call it from like all the way to my right, like directly on my head. I'm like, how does that?
Right.
That never happens for me. No, like
Right.
no scope me with a sniper. I'm like, what? But yeah, no, I feel like you can get a lot better, I think, on a PC than you can on a console to a degree. Like your skills can be pretty
Yeah.
unmatched.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But, PCs are also a lot more expensive though. Like
Yeah.
there are components of the PC that you need to play games
Hmm.
that can be, depending on how far you want to go, like 2 or 3 times more expensive than the entire console. Like
Right.
GPUs are crazy expensive. Now if you want to get like the newest, good ones,
Right.
um,
Yeah,
that's that's
mine are
insane.
custom built PCs too. So I kind of dealt with that. The first one that I bought was a custom built, but they pre-built it for me. So I didn't actually have to put the components together, but I picked out all the
Right.
parts. And then this one I actually bought from my most recent roommate, not the one I was talking about earlier, but a different guy that I met in college. And he comes from a good amount of money, I'll put it that way. So like half of my stuff, like my shoes, all my shoes are like his old shoes that he didn't want anymore, but I would never buy for myself. The PC,
Right.
he got like a $4,000 PC, but he had this other one that was still like a $2,500 one. He's like, I'll give it to you for like 1,000 if you want it. I was like, yeah, I'll take
Wow.
that. So
Nice.
I got pretty fortunate with that. But yeah, like I probably could do with upgrading the graphics card, but that's like $1,000. Like I'm not doing that. So
Yeah, exactly. That's
yeah,
crazy, man. And there's people
yeah,
who upgrade like every cycle. I'm like,
I
that's
know.
nuts. No
That's got to be your
thanks.
life if you want to do that. There are people in the credit
Yeah.
community Discord that they've sent me like their setups and stuff, and I'm like, dude, you know what you're doing, but I'm never gonna have a setup that nice. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Do you run RGB in your setup?
Yeah, I set them honestly all to like all of my lights and everything are like warm hues in general. So like in my entire
Mm.
room, like I guess you can't see this because it's out of the frame, but I don't want to move it. I'll mess something up. My like light that's always in the back of my videos is always like a orangish hue, and then all my light bulbs in general, but my PC on the inside is the same kind of like orange and white, I guess, kind of like UT colors in a sense, but more like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like a softer orange. So I used to
Right.
be like heavy into the RGB though, like my keyboard
Uh,
I would always have like RGB, but now it's only backlit with like orange. And
Right.
yeah.
Well, they say for every piece of RBG, it adds like 20 frames per second to your game.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case, but I'll sacrifice it, I guess, for now.
Okay, so let's get a little bit crazy. Not
Okay.
crazy, but let's just get a little bit out there. Um, Aliens. With all the
Okay.
stuff that's going on with aliens in the news right now, I don't know how much you've seen of it. Are
Not
aliens
a ton,
here?
but I, you mean here as in on Earth?
Here is an on Earth.
Mm. Well, my stance on aliens is that I think it's almost slightly, I don't know if I should say ignorant because I might like offend people, but to think that there is no other kind of life in the entire like universe, I think is crazy. So I do
Right.
believe that aliens or a sort of alien exists. If they're here on Earth, I'm less convinced, but I do think that like people have stories that should at least be heard out. Like all this stuff with the like the military planes, like people coming out saying that they're, you know, seeing like extraterrestrial life or whatever, UFOs in general. Like I do believe that kind of stuff could be real.
Mm,
I haven't seen it personally, so I guess I can't really have too big of an opinion.
right.
But I'd say, yeah, we got to have something around here. Not all these people are real people, you know?
Right. Lizard people.
Exactly. Yeah. We got a couple.
Yeah. So the way I look at it, right, is I agree. Like the universe is just way too massive for there to be nothing else out there.
Right.
I mean, and it's expanding. So the sad truth is we'll probably never know for sure because
Right.
if we ever get to the point where we could reach like whatever star now, by the time we get to that point, that star will be even further away. Just the way the universe is expanding. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think we've had aliens visit Earth. And the reason why is like, granted, I've only had like 2 college level physics classes. So there's, people way smarter than me as far as physics goes. But when you look at the physics of space, the distance that things are, and the amount of like energy it would take to be able to travel fast enough to not
Yeah.
only get somewhere within, you know, your own lifetime, which the math behind that is ridiculous, right? But to figure
Right.
out how not to like disintegrate yourself in the process. If there's some kind of intelligence that's smart enough to figure that out and make it happen, but then when they get here, they're too dumb to turn out the lights when they're spying on us in
Right.
the sky. Like
Right.
it just doesn't make sense in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, that is a really
So
good point. The only thing I could think is like if we're literally like a little ant farm to them or something, and they just like they don't
right,
care if we see them kind of thing. Maybe it's like some kind of game they're playing. Who knows? But
right.
yeah, I
And
imagine that
then
they're not thinking like we are. So
yeah, and then that's when you get into things like, like interdimensional and all that. And then
right.
yeah, I can see that, but that's like way beyond my capacity.
Yeah.
Uh,
I do not think that the aliens that we think of, like in the sense of like the little green body people, I don't think that that's what they are like. But
yeah,
that's not really a nuanced take. I don't think at this point.
yeah. And then all the like the UFOs that are coming out from the DoD now. What's
Hmm.
that guy Jeremy Corbell that he's releasing all these videos? I don't personally. I don't think they're aliens. I think they're probably just more like spy tech or something that we're either not familiar with or you know people at a higher level do know what it is, and it's just kind of
Right.
like, all right, just release this to placate the people. You know what I mean?
That kind of thing does kind of not worry me, but I'm like, there's no like way that we are privy to even a quarter
Yeah.
of the information that the government has. You know, like there's so much that we don't know about. So I would imagine too that yeah, it's all like military, like intelligence or something like that from another country that
Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
don't know the information of. I mean, if you can see what they do in like North Korea, how much they gatekeep all the information there. So it's like to
Right.
think that we have none of that happening in the US, I think would be kind of crazy too.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Um. Oh, I don't know what happened. I just lost my notes with my questions. All right, we're gonna wing it.
Okay.
Um, I totally lost my train of thought now because of that. Um,
Well, we
okay,
got
so
aliens done.
yeah, aliens are out of the way. So when the time comes and you're on your deathbed,
Hmm.
in that moment before you go, what would you feel that you needed to have accomplished in your life to be like at peace and you're like, okay, I've done whatever I needed or wanted to do. Like I'm ready to go. There's nothing left for me to do.
Yeah. See, I know you told me that there were going to be some hard ones to think about, and I did not think about this one as much as I should have. But no, in general, I think like on my deathbed, first of all, I'm the type of person that I do like aspire to have like a family in general. I
Mhm.
know some people don't, you know, like I have even like step siblings that are like not sure about the whole kids thing. But to me, I think like the most rewarding thing or the way that I could go like the most peacefully is just knowing that one, I set them up for success, and that does not mean like monetarily. Like I'd like to leave, money to my kids and stuff, but at the same time, it's like if I can instill values in like a future generation, that I know will help them to then do the same with their kids and stuff like that. Like that is what I think is the most important to me. And just if I got to the end of my life and I really didn't have any like, I guess just like animosity towards my family, I think would be the biggest thing, or like them towards
Mm.
me. Like I just want to have like a circle of just love in general. And
Okay.
I think family is probably the most important thing to me in general. So that's not like a hopefully too surprising of an answer, but that like at the end of the day, that's all we really have, in my opinion. And some people are dealt really bad hands with families, but I think I've
Yeah.
been lucky enough to, even through some of the stuff that we've gone through, like I care a ton about them. Hence why I still like see them all the time and stuff like that. But I'd like to instill the same values in my kids,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's good. So kind of, wanting to have a family and stuff, and then going back to the girlfriend thing, as you are right now, is that something that you're actively pursuing, or have you put that like kind of on the back burner and you're just not worried about it now, somewhere in the middle?
Yeah. So we haven't talked fully about this, but my relationship before that too was also a pretty long one. Like it was like 2.5 years or something. And granted, that was like part of high school going into college. So less serious, but still valid. And then after that one, I was single, I guess, for like a year and a half or something like that. And then got into another relationship and then now just got out of that one. So
Mm.
in all honesty, like I feel like there are life experiences that I need to have while I'm single. And I'm not talking about like, going around and just messing around with a bunch of girls or something like that. But just in
Right.
general, I think that there's a big difference in doing life as a single person than there is being in a relationship, even just in like daily like conversations with
Yeah.
people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So right now I'm not in the search of like that one, that person that I want to marry or whatever. But I also, like I said, again, with my faith, like believe that not only things happen for a reason, but that there's already a plan set out for me. So whenever that person comes into my life, I'm going to be excited about it, but I'm not like actively searching. I'm more like, I want to travel a ton this year. And while I'm traveling, I'd like to be able to have as much fun as I can, hang out with my friends. I don't want to feel weird about going out to a bar and, hanging
Right.
out and talking with people. So right now it's more of like let's just have as many experiences as I can. But if that person comes along, obviously I'm going to be super excited. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I was when I met my wife. I was, you know, I'd been dating and like actively pursuing relationships, and then I had a breakup, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about relationships right now. I
right,
think I was 19 at the time. I was just like, I'm just gonna live my life. You know what I mean?
right.
And whatever happens, happens. And I actually I was an assistant manager at a store in the mall called Natural Wonders.
Mm,
We used to, I don't know, I just sold all kinds of weird stuff. The inside of the store was kind of set up like a rainforest, but they sold all those like cool science toys,
okay.
telescopes.
Yeah.
Um, eh, I don't think they've existed for years, but um, and this girl came in looking for a job one day, and so I did her interview. She answered all the questions, pretty right on point. So I hired her. Um, and we became pretty decent friends.
Yeah.
And then she's probably gonna be mad at me for telling the story, but as our friendship was going, I guess I was too stupid at the time. I didn't realize it, but she was, you know, kind of into me. It's hard
Yeah.
to say that
Interested.
without sounding like egotistical, but yeah, interested. That sounds better. She was
Yeah.
interested, and I was just like, you know, yeah, she's
Oblivious
cool.
a little
She's
bit.
like one of my best friends.
Right.
And she always brings this up, like she was interested in me and I thought she was cute.
Yeah.
She's like, "Really? That's it? You just thought I was cute?" Um,
Right.
but eventually, uh, our relationship and, our marriage, the woman that I ended up spending, or that I still plan to spend the rest of my life with, just came out of friendship, and I
Right.
wasn't looking for it. It just happened naturally. And
Yep.
you know, that's my experience, but even before that was my experience, I think there was always a part of me that felt like that's probably the best way to go about it. And that's not to say like anyone who goes out looking for a relationship and then
Yeah.
marries that person is doing it wrong. Like everybody's an individual. What works for one isn't necessarily going to work for everybody else. But for me, that just always felt like the way it should be, and that's what ended up happening for me. And here we
Yeah.
are. I'm like the
I,
happiest I've ever been.
right. I think that's the way to do it. That's how both my relationships have happened in the past. Like, it's like if you look for it too hard, there's something kind of off about that. But I got a
Yeah,
question
yeah.
for you on this front, because
Okay.
like you said, you've been married for almost 20 years. So as you're talking to somebody that is not at that stage yet of even marriage in general, what's like one piece of advice, doesn't have to be your biggest piece, that you have for somebody looking for that like lifelong partner?
Okay. So this might be an unpopular answer,
Okay.
but it's what I've learned over time, right? A
Hmm.
lot of people have this conception of like love, that like you see someone and you fall in love with them, and that's the person because you love them, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think a lot of people's idea of what love is inaccurate, to put it
Yeah.
delicately. Like, people think love is something that happens to you, and what I've learned over time is love is a choice that you make, and it's a
Mm.
lot of work, right?
Yeah.
And I think the best example of that is if you take two people who have been together for any amount of time and you
Hmm.
say, okay, why do you love this person? And they start naming things like, well, I love him because he's really nice, and I love him because of the way he, you know, I don't know, just pulling random things out of the air, the way
Right.
he is with my kids, or I love him because, he loves animals. Well, then your follow-up question is, okay, well, what happens if one day he becomes a jerk? Or what happens if one day he isn't so great with your kids? Or, one day he hates animals? Like, if that's why you love that person, what happens if that's not there anymore? Then do you still love that person?
Mm.
Right?
Right.
So, and the thing is, with people change over time. I'm not the
Yeah.
same person I was when me and my wife were dating. She's not the same person she was. We've changed multiple times over the 23, 24 years, whatever it is we've been together.
Hmm.
And every time somebody changes, it's something that you have to adapt to. And you have to
Right.
decide, like, okay, sh my wife is not the same person she was back then, but I choose to still love her. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
Um, and like I said, that might sound off, or people might think, that might be an unpopular opinion, but just through life experience and being with somebody that long, that's what I've learned.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's a good answer, because I think that would resonate with a lot of people, especially my age. I think from a I don't know, from my upbringing, I don't have the sense that some people do of like there is one specific person out there in the world for you, like your soulmate or whatever. Like I do think that people are, meant to be together in a sense. But if I was to say that there's only one person out there for you, then that means that my mom getting remarried should not have happened. Like I don't believe that. Like
Right.
I think she also really loves, the my
Right.
stepdad. So to me, I do realize that love is work. Like it is a choice more than it is just like a happy-go-lucky thing. But I
Yeah.
know a lot of people my age that are like, well, I'm waiting for that one right person. It's like, first of all, if you think that you can find that one right person out of the 7-8 billion people in the
Right.
world, that's a little bit delusional. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, I think that's a really good answer, because it's like also with my past relationship. In reality, we could still be together because we chose to then work, through our differences and make that happen. But at the same time, there are things I think that like fundamentally, that person that you're with very well. And if those fundamentals don't align, that's where I think problems arise. But
Right.
presumably, your wife and you, even though you've changed a little bit, not superficially, but like not at such a deep level, you still have that to come back to, that foundation, I
Right.
assume. But
Well, one good thing for my wife is I'm like way more handsome now than I was back then. So,
yeah,
I mean, she's got that going for her.
exactly right.
Um,
Lucky
no,
lady.
but yeah, the uh, the flip side of that too, and you got to be careful, right? Is you've got people who are in very toxic and potentially dangerous situations
Right.
who take that same mentality and apply it to like a wrong situation, like people who are getting like abused and beat
Hmm.
and, you know, and it's like, I don't want to say it's a fine line. Thank God I've never been in a situation like that.
Right.
Um, but it's like, there's a point where like you also have to choose to walk away,
Right.
you know?
I agree. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I don't know.
Relationships are a fun thing, but it
Yeah.
is it's
Right.
nice to be able to talk openly about it too, because I mean, like we talked about earlier, like I feel like being an open book, at least for me personally, is how I want to continue to live my life in general, and
Mm,
especially with the YouTube channel and stuff too. Like at the end of the day, we're all people going through the exact same experiences, including
right.
relationships. So it's like we can just
Right.
talk about them, especially as like men too. I feel like that's something that people don't. It's a little bit still taboo to like talk about feelings and all this kind of stuff
Right.
as a man. But to me, I think that's like one of the most uh, powerful things that you can do. And I think luckily a lot of my friends are like that. And I think I've surrounded myself with people that are open to talking about this stuff. And maybe that's why I'm more open with my life. But I think I hope that this is helpful for somebody out there who might be
Yeah.
going through some kind of
Yeah.
relationship issue too. So,
It's kind of funny. Me and my buddy, actually my partner in my financial coaching business, we
mm,
were talking and we both wanted to start something where like we work with like junior, senior high school like
hmm,
age boys, and make kind of like a club where, we mentor them, we teach them how to be men, but it's like a combination of like, you know, I don't want to say how to act. That sounds very basic, but just the way to carry yourself. And then
right.
also mix in some kind of like, dressing nice, dressing professionally, just all encompassing,
Yeah.
how to be like but we were trying to think of a name for it. And I was like, like, well, we're teaching them to be young gentlemen. It's a club. Why don't we just call it the Gentlemen's Club?
Yeah.
And like it
That'd
didn't
go
click
over
what I
well.
said at first. And my friend's just looking at me like, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah. The
okay, yeah,
Young
never mind.
Gentlemen's Club. That's
Yeah,
Richie's
yeah. So,
business.
yeah,
That's hilarious.
so that will not be the name if we decide to move forward with it.
Yeah. No, I love that though. I think that's, there's obviously a need for that kind of stuff in the market. I mean, you see people people hate someone like Andrew Tate, but that's basically his target audience.
Right.
And you can really develop somebody's mind at that
Yeah.
age. So it's just, you want to
Yeah.
make sure they find the right path.
Right.
But yeah, there's a,
So,
there was one guy on YouTube, last thing too, that I know that people talked about a lot recently, I feel like, but he does like he's like the dad of the internet. I don't even know what his YouTube channel is, but he teaches you how to do things as if he was your dad and just records it and puts it on YouTube. And it's like one
right.
of the most like loved channels. I think that's
Oh
really
yeah.
cool. But yeah,
There's a dude I came across on TikTok who kind of does that too. Um, is
maybe it's
very
the
like
same.
crude and like curses a lot and stuff, but he's
Oh,
like
no, like,
stuff your dad should have taught you, and then he'll
yeah,
go over some like useful life thing that you kind of should know. You know what I mean?
right.
Um,
Yeah.
but you've you've brought it up 2 or 3 times over the course of our conversation.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're open to talking about it or not, but you've brought up your faith a couple of times. Do you want to
Hmm.
go a little bit into that?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I talked about it a little bit in a few probably podcasts, because I don't, again, it's not something that comes up with credit cards at all, but
Right.
especially with like Brian Jung, we both talked about how we're both Christians. Like I wasn't exactly brought up in a Christian household in the sense that like we didn't go to church really ever, except for like holidays, which I think is honestly a lot of Americans in general. That's kind of how
Right.
you're raised. But going into middle and high school, I did the whole like youth group thing. Why is this up here? Now they're
The
heckling me.
computer doesn't like that we're Christians.
Yeah. And but yeah, the youth group stuff is like, yeah, I mean, it's basically just to hang out with friends to a degree.
Yeah.
Like it's not something
Yeah.
anything too serious there. And then getting into college is again where I really in general started to shape my life into what I wanted it to be. And one of those things that I really wanted to, have as a core tenet was some a faith of some kind. And I
Mhm.
started to surround myself with people that were also, looking for that. And really had a lot of cool experiences through college, through the churches in Austin. And I even went as far as I was a small group leader or whatever. So doing like Bible studies
Oh
and stuff
wow.
like that. Like I did all of that in college as well. And yeah, these days I still have that faith. I think part of me was like so involved in it, which this is like a completely different topic too, but I think there is some sort of like religious burnout that people go through,
Mhm.
especially when you're really, really plugged in. Um, and like that was like an everyday kind of thing for me. So that was like a lot in college, but it also brought me to have the faith that I have today. And now it's a little bit more of a personal faith rather than me trying to experience it with all these other people, like through a small group and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I still hold a lot of those tenets like really core to myself. And that kind of drives me, as you can tell, like with the way I think about everything is like everything happens for a reason. Like I think
Right.
that my God, or, God in general, has a plan for me. And that takes a lot of the stress away from my day to day life. Um,
Right.
yeah. So stuff like that, I still, um, and hopefully always will hold like near and dear to my heart. But you kind of mentioned too that you might share the same faith, unless that was a
Yeah,
misstep.
yeah, I'm pretty, I mean, like you said, it doesn't come up often, and I don't,
Right.
like, just throw it out for no reason, but,
Yeah.
I am open about my faith, I'm a Christian. One thing I've noticed as I get older is I've gotten more into, if you know what it is, apologetics. You know what that is?
Yes. Isn't that like, well, maybe you should explain it so I don't.
So
So,
apologetics is basically just like, as a younger Christian, a lot of people would ask me questions that I just
right.
didn't have the answers for, and they're like, "Well, how can this?" Right? So apologetics is basically getting the answers to the hard questions.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all I say fact based. People who probably don't share our faith probably just scoff at me saying that, but
Right.
it's all taken from like valid, proven documentation. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't have the time between my job and my businesses and everything to do this. But you brought up youth groups. One
Hmm.
thing I see and I remember from my experiences, like you said, youth groups are kind of just can very easily be reduced to just like hangouts,
Right.
right? And so, like, are the kids really learning anything? And then a lot of times kids are faced with these tough questions and they didn't learn the fundamentals
Yeah.
and they didn't learn how to answer these questions. So like if I could, and it's probably terrible of me to say that like I'm not willing to make the time to do this, but
No. Yeah. I get you.
if I could be like a youth leader or something, I would lean very much into the apologetic side because then, when kids are either, whether confronted peacefully or, made fun of and like teased
Yeah.
about it, they would have the answer. You know what I
Right.
mean? Um,
There is maybe a sense of or a way to go about it in the sense of utilizing something like YouTube too. If it's something that,
yeah,
that's the cool thing I think about YouTube, and as a whole, is that it just opens up the possibility to take any one of your hobbies or passions or whatever you want and just document it for the world to see. So
right.
it's kind of a side note, but I do think that that is one of the issues with youth group in general. I think it's just hard enough to get people to want to even go, like when they're kids.
Yeah,
And so the way that you do that is by making it really fun and entertaining.
right,
But then like during the actual like sermons or the messages, it's like then nobody's paying attention kind of thing. And
right,
there's
right.
definitely a
Yeah,
right way to go about it. And I think that the churches I went to were good, but yeah, I feel like I wasn't fully like invested in my faith until college, until I really took it upon myself.
right. And then to actually kind of tie this into the alien thing, right? I have a lot of friends who are, um, either atheist or agnostic or whatever. And so,
Hmm.
like, when all this like alien stuff started coming up in the news, they were like, "Well, I mean, doesn't that kind of just ruin your faith right there?" And I was like, "So, two-part answer. One, no, because what I said earlier, like, I believe this is more like earth-based stuff that we either, you know,
Right.
are just kind of like they're throwing us like, okay, let them see this. It won't make any difference."
Right.
Um, but two, I equivalent it to like, so you have a TV, right?
Hmm.
And you have a car, right? Do you have a car?
Yeah.
Okay. So your car came with an owner's manual and your TV came with an owner's manual. Does the owner's manual for your car mention your TV or does your TV owner's manual mention your car? No, because they have
No. Yeah.
nothing to do with each other, right?
Right.
So like let's just say like I said, like, yeah, there absolutely is more likely aliens out there than there isn't, right?
Right.
But if they have nothing to do with us, they're like, well, they don't mention aliens in the Bible. I'm like, well, why would they?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it has
They can't cover
nothing to
every,
do with
yeah.
us. Yeah. You
Right.
know, the Bible also doesn't mention microwaves.
Right. So
So,
yeah, I get that too. I think of it too of just like the Bible in general, I think is broadly applicable to every life circumstance in a way. And I think sometimes people take it so literally, like whenever they're trying to debate the things, that it's like, well, you're
right,
missing the entire point here. Like it's
right,
not whether or not you even like take something like, Jonah and the fish and stuff like that. Whether or not you even believe that specific story shouldn't impact the value that you get from the story, in my
right,
opinion, But
right.
yeah,
And a lot of people on both sides of the argument, like people who are atheistic or people who are Christian, don't understand like what the Bible is. The Bible is a collection of different books and it's a collection of different types of writing. Like it's got poetry, it's got prose discourse,
right.
it's got, historical writing. Like it's not all just one, like this is what it is and that's it.
Hmm.
And like I think people either overlook that or forget it or just don't know it.
Right. I think the don't know is probably the biggest thing too, because like the amount of people that even that are Christians that have actually read the Bible is pretty low. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
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 In general though, I think that, I'm not going to ever sit there and tell you that if you're not a Christian, like you're a bad person, all this kind of stuff. Like that's not what my faith is about. It's more of like I said,
Right.
a personal relationship. And I hope that through my actions, you can, maybe, glean some, you wonder where it comes from. And theoretically it comes from my faith. But in general, I just think that even if you took some of the core of the message and just lived your life a little bit more biblically in general, you're just better off. I think it just, like I
Exactly.
said, it just takes it gives me more peace in life. It gives me just
Right.
something to look forward to after this life. Like it's just, I think just a easier, maybe not easier, but just a better way to live in a sense for
Yeah.
me. Maybe people don't
Yeah.
agree with that, but yeah, that's how I feel.
No, for sure. Um, I wonder how many people we've like scared off from watching at this point.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the retention curve on that one.
Right. um, but you said you know, you don't believe that if someone isn't a Christian, that makes them a bad person. Like there was a point where before you were a Christian, before I was a Christian, I don't think either one of us were probably bad people. But that said, I want to ask, what kind of kid were you? Were you like a pretty good kid? Or were you like a hooligan? Were you like a hard time for your parents and your
No,
teachers?
I think in a sense I was forced to mature pretty early,
Mhm.
because my parents got divorced whenever I was like 10 years old, and I was like the oldest sibling, so like I assumed a lot of responsibilities when I was young. But in general, I don't think I was ever like necessarily a bad kid. Like I think I'm a people pleaser in a sense, like at heart, you know. And that's a personality trait that my mom definitely has, and my dad probably too. But my sister definitely inherited it more than I did. Um, like she's just like my mom in that sense. But yeah, like I don't think I ever was too big of a problem. Like I was never going to get in trouble in school. I was very much like living by the book when it came to school, and
Right.
found a lot of my again. I wrapped up a lot of my identity in being good in classes, which then led to wrapping up my identity in college with my degree, and then in my job afterwards and all this stuff. Like it just keeps kind of happening. But it did help me become, I think, a better kid for my parents.
Yeah.
And I was also super invested in sports, and I think that set me straight pretty quick too. I think that's an important thing to have, like a kid that is invested in something outside of themselves in a way, some kind of
Mhm.
team aspect. So
Yeah.
yeah. What about you?
I think I was kind of middle of the road. Like, I'll be the first to admit I was a horrible student. I just did not care
Yeah.
in school. Right. So I think if you ask most of my teachers back in the day, they would tell you I was a great kid, but I was a terrible student. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Because I wasn't ever like causing a disturbance in class or anything.
right.
But especially if it was a subject I didn't care about that for me, like history, dude, if I was even awake, it was a miracle in history
Yeah.
class. Um,
I
if
gotcha.
it was a subject that I did like science, I tended to do better because I wasn't bored. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, but and then even outside of school, I mean, I was by no means like an angel and perfect. I got in a little bit of trouble here and there. I definitely ticked my
Right.
parents off more than a few times, but I was kind of like you. Like, I feel like I matured a little bit in quicker in the sense that, like, I would never go do anything that was going to be like a major, like, I didn't get into
Right.
drugs. I didn't get into hard partying. I didn't, you know, get into like heavy drinking or anything like that. Like, I would just
Yeah.
do little stuff that my parents were probably like, dude, are you serious? Come on. Like,
Yeah. Right.
stop being a dummy. But it was never anything bad,
Yeah.
and I would like things like, as far as like if I was going out with friends and like I would, if my parents did give me a curfew, I would usually be home before the curfew.
Mm.
Or if I was gonna be late, I was smart enough to like get in touch with them somehow. Because back then we didn't have cell phones.
Right. Right.
But I
Right.
would I would find a way to get in touch with them and be like, "Hey, listen, I know you told me I had to be home at this time. I'm not gonna make it. This is why." And they were cool with it. And eventually they just stopped giving me a curfew because I had gotten to the point where they trusted me enough,
Yeah.
um, that they didn't worry anymore. So yeah, I was kind of like, I guess, middle of the road, a little bit more towards good kid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, we definitely all make some kind of make it hard on our parents somehow. Like I have some good stories of that, but it's at the end of the day, yeah, I think I've definitely seen some kids that are a little bit worse than I was. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah,
so.
yeah. I had some
Yeah.
friends that my parents were like, it just murdered them that I was friends with these kids.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, whatever, it's not a big deal. And like looking back on it now, like if my kids were friends with those kids, I'd be like, yeah, no, that's not
Yeah.
happening. Like,
That's like how
no,
my
sir.
sister is. Her friend groups are just like, dude, you got to get out of this. Cause then it just brings you down to a degree, or
Yeah,
they make
yeah,
mistakes at your house or whatever. And it's like, dude, yeah.
yeah.
But
I remember one time in particular, I had a friend who was one of those kids spend the night. And we snuck out, and I mean, this was before we could drive. We
yeah.
snuck out, and I had, like, I was always into movies, and, like, I always enjoyed, like, the study of film and stuff, so I had, like, this old movie camera.
Hmm.
So we were just walking around getting footage of, like, our neighborhood at, like, it was, like, 1 AM in the morning, and we were, like, 14, 15 years old, and
Right.
these cops pulled up. And, they just see a couple of young kids out with, like, this camera, so, they start questioning us, "Well, where'd you get the camera from?" Like, trying to figure
Right.
out if we stole it or whatever. Well, they bring us back to my house because he was spending the night at my house, and, they knock on the door, and they let us in, and that was probably one of the last times I hung out with that kid outside of school, not because, like, it was his fault, like, I mean, I was there too, I snuck out too,
Right.
but I was just like, yeah, my parents were pretty upset. Like, cause imagine that being a parent and
Hmm.
then a cop knocks on your door, wakes you up and asks, "Do you know where your kid is?" Like, that's gotta be horrifying. If
Right.
that happened to me now as a parent, dude, my heart would drop into the soles of my feet. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but the flip side of that too is like I said, like this was like an old movie camera, and the
Hmm.
cops, the cops like, "Where'd you get it from?
Yeah.
Did you just steal this?" I'm like, "Dude, this camera is like 40 years old. What store is?"
Yeah.
No, I didn't steal it. What are you talking about?
That's so funny. Oh, yeah. I snuck out a time or two, but sorry,
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah, right? Right, and
Yeah.
you think about it now, like, as an adult, like, it is pretty dumb, right? Because 'Cause you're like this little kid, you're out in the
Yeah.
middle of the night when probably not many people with the best of intentions are running around at that time,
Yeah.
And you're like, like I said, I was like 14, like, what was I gonna do? Like, if
Right.
anything happened, I was done.
Yeah. I guess that goes to show, at least for my situation, that I was in a pretty fortunate position to live where I did, where I wasn't,
Yeah,
because if I lived in a little bit of a tougher part of town, it could be a lot worse. But yeah, growing up in the
yeah,
country, out here, it's like, yeah, not too many bad people out here, hopefully. Or
yeah.
you just don't see other cars because there's not that many people out.
Okay, so I wanna ask you this question with the intention of having a follow-up question, but I wanna get your overall look on it first. How do you deal with, let's just say, how do you deal with adversity?
Mm. I like to think that I'm somebody that takes it um, well. Like I like to welcome it, I guess would be the way to put it. Like I think there's only really one way to grow, and that comes from adversity and comes from like tough situations and stuff. But I think that the issue that lies there with me personally is, like I said, I identify with a lot of things that are kind of out of my control in a sense. So like when it comes to adversity, when it comes like with the YouTube channel, for example, like when I get negative comments and stuff like that, or at least when I used to, that would like physically hurt me, which I think was the wrong way to go about dealing with that kind of stuff. And I've gotten a lot better with that. But yeah, I think like my natural mode is to assume responsibility of things and assume control of it. So whenever I face adversity in those situations, it like hurts me internally. But again, I think it's like a work in progress thing, and I don't think that you grow without it.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask, like I said, that was kind of like a question leading into another one. I asked specifically because you mentioned earlier that you're a fan of them boys.
Oh God,
them boys haven't had such a great time recently.
No, never.
For anyone who doesn't know, them boys are the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about your team too if we want to talk about adversity. But
dude, I'm the first to admit,
the Dolphins fan over here.
Yeah, like I said before we started recording, dude, it takes a lot of heart to be a Miami Dolphins fan.
Yeah, I think we can agree or sympathize with each other on that one, or empathize, whatever. Because being a Cowboys fan since I've been alive is not a good thing to be. Like people just hate the Cowboys fans, and the Cowboys haven't been good since I can remember. So it's a little bit tough, but it's funny because that actually just helped me understand why I don't feel like it doesn't hurt me as bad. And that's genuinely because I just don't associate with sports teams as much as like I have friends that live and die by their sports teams. And I'm not like that. I could care less if they actually do well or not. The Longhorns do hurt me more, like being a Texas fan, because I went there. So like whenever we lost in the semifinals this year, I was like, golly, like that one kind of pained me. But like the Cowboys, I was just like, this is almost comical at this point. Like, how do you do this every single year and we can just expect it? But yeah.
Well, yeah, Longhorns is probably like a little bit more personal. You almost feel like you have like a little more sense of ownership since you went to that school, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's a different topic. I won't dive into
it. But yeah, the Dolphins, right? Like, I mean, earlier in the season, we were breaking all these records, and we finished the season breaking all these records. And then even after we were eliminated, we broke records because the Lions, they made it to the second game of the playoffs. So now we are the longest running team that has run a playoff game. So even after our season's over, breaking records.
I know. Let's go Miami. Yeah. I won't lie. I had almost zero faith that y'all would win that game because of how cold it was. I was like, there's no way.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way.
See, I'll probably catch a lot of flack from this from my friends. But even if it wasn't that cold, I still don't think we were going to win that game.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are just tough to beat in general. But
yeah.
Dude, it's so funny watching them this year. I don't like, honestly, watching the Chiefs do good just because they've been good for so long at this point. It's kind of like the Warriors in basketball. It's like I just like watching them lose at this point.
Right.
But all the drop passes they had this year was insane. Like every game I turned on, I was like, this is horrible. Like it's so funny to watch. But I also had Travis Kelce on my fantasy team, so that didn't help.
Oh, yeah. I think this is like the first year that I didn't have him on my fantasy team. And this is also the first year that I didn't make it into the championship. So, and what does that tell you?
Yeah.
But I apologize to any Swifties who might be watching this, but I got to be honest. I used to kind of just be indifferent about Kansas City, but this year I kind of grew into like I actively don't like Kansas City. Not like I hate, like we were talking about earlier.
Right.
But I just got so tired of not being able to watch a Kansas City game without a significant portion of that either showing or talking about Taylor Swift. And I get it. My wife is always like, it's not her fault that they show her on camera. I understand that, but I don't care whose fault it is. Like, I want to watch football.
I know.
I don't want to watch Taylor Swift.
I don't even know. I still don't feel like that's actually a real relationship. Like, I think it's almost like a PR stunt.
There was a meme I saw, which made me laugh, and it's great. I hope it's true. Before they started dating, there was pictures of Taylor Swift in Eagles stuff.
Mm,
And so the whole thing, the whole relationship is just like an inside job. She's gonna start dating Travis Kelce and then destroy the team from the inside. I'm
it
like, that would
could
be
be.
amazing.
It could be. Or yeah, I was thinking you're gonna go the whole like she was with Jason Kelsey before, but no, he
Yeah.
just retired though.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that. But then he came out and said he didn't say he's not retiring, but he said he wasn't ready to make that announcement yet or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on
Uh,
there. My
he's got a
daughter,
podcast and stuff. He'll be good.
yeah, my daughter's a huge Eagles fan. I don't know how that happened because
Oh
she grew up in
God,
South Florida, but
I can't stand the Eagles fans. Sorry, Daniel Braun.
oh,
He's at
is he
least
an
a
Eagles
good
fan?
Eagles
Yeah,
fan.
because he's from
Yeah,
Philly. So yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but
He's
at
not
least he's from Philly. That
aggressive.
makes sense.
Right, right. Yeah. Oh man.
All right, man. So is there anything since I lost my questions? I think I only had like one or two questions
I know the one that
left.
you were
But
gonna ask me that you forgot. I know one, and it was the worst way to die. So
that's
you've
right.
asked everybody else that question.
But let's flip it. Before we go to that one, what's the
Okay.
best way to die?
Well, I guess going along with how we were talking about earlier, like being on my deathbed and stuff, I think that like a very peaceful death, like with loved ones around, where it's like I don't want it to be unexpected. I guess that's the way I want to put it. Like I want it to be almost an expected thing. I don't want somebody to have to pull the plug on me and all this kind of stuff. But I want it to be like, oh, okay, that made sense and he lived his life to the fullest kind of thing. So whether
Yeah.
that's like, I don't know if I would want it to like happen at my house though, because then your family has to deal with that. So
Right.
maybe I do hope I'm like in the hospital or something,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, I definitely don't want it to be like a surprise, I guess.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of
Yeah.
mixed on that, right? Because half of me is like, I just want to not even know it's coming. I just want to go to sleep one night and just never wake up.
Yeah.
Like for me, that's the best way to go. But then
Right.
that's also pretty selfish because somebody in my family is going to find me,
Right.
and that's going to be like, it's going to be horrible for them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. That's how I feel.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know. But okay. So now the moneymaker question, the question everybody loves.
Uh-huh.
What is the worst way to die?
Yeah. I did think about this one a little bit because I know you'd ask other people. So I was like, I got to answer it. I would say for me, I think that drowning would be the worst, honestly. I do think that would be my least favorite. I know that you could like go out burning or falling off a skyscraper or something. I don't know. But I think part of me with drowning, I feel like you always feel like you might have a chance to survive it. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
Like to where you could
yeah.
like maybe swim to the top at some point. And
Yeah.
I don't like that. I'd rather like know in a sense that if I was going to die horribly, like if I was burning alive, you're not getting out of that. So I think there's
Right.
some kind of peace in that maybe, but I'd rather not die in any of these fashions.
Right. Yeah. Dude, but that's an interesting thing. I never thought about that before. Like you're almost there.
Right.
You like, I'm gonna make it, and then you don't. Ooh.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of us, I think, have like maybe not a lot of us have had near drowning experiences, but I feel like a lot of us have at least had the sense of like being underwater for a little bit too long. You're like, I need to get
Yeah.
up, and so like that
Well,
way, I
you
feel
had
like
somebody
you're
holding you
comfortable with that.
underwater.
Yeah, that's true. At least I had a respirator, but no. But like, yeah, that scares the crap out of me because then I think it's like a natural situation for you where you're like, oh, I could probably survive this. So let me
Yeah.
try, and then it's just super painful the whole time, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
I did think of
But
another
yeah,
one too. Being buried alive.
that was
Just
actually that might be the
is
worst.
horrifying, right? Because especially me, like it's not like paralyzing, but I have some level of claustrophobia. You know, I don't
Right.
like not being able to move.
Yeah, that
So
yeah.
that plus the slow suffocation, plus again, it's something, it's not quick. So the whole time
Mm.
that you're gonna die. Like, ugh.
That one actually might be worse. Yeah. Because that's the same thing again where it's like I mean, I guess it does hurt to a degree. It's kind of both suffocating in a way, but like
Yeah.
eventually you take on enough water, you kind of just pass out or whatever. But I don't
Yeah.
know. Yes, buried alive that would suck.
And then you hear the stories too of like people who they dug up and like they
There's
open the
like
casket or whatever, and there's all the claw mark. Like, ugh.
Yeah.
No, sir.
No, thank you. That would suck. Yeah, that might flip my answer, but I think a more common way to go out really poorly would be drowning
Yeah. Yeah.
than being buried alive. But yeah,
Yeah.
no.
We have that being in South Florida. That's a constant as a parent too, because the beach is right there.
Hmm.
And especially on the Treasure Coast where I live, we get really bad rip currents.
Yeah,
You know what that is?
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know if the
So
audience does, but yeah.
yeah, just in case there's anybody who doesn't, a rip current is it's deadly because you can't see it. You don't know it's there, but it's a very strong undertow that just once it grabs you, it just pulls you out to the ocean under the water.
Hmm.
And nobody is strong enough to like swim it. They say, if you get caught in one, swim to the side. Don't try to swim the shore. I'm sure some people have survived it by doing that, but once you get caught in one, it's
Yeah,
slim to none. So that, as a parent in South Florida on the Treasure Coast, that scares me.
yeah.
Um,
I agree. My uncle, the one I was talking about, him and his, I guess, girlfriend, they had like an experience with that recently. It wasn't like an underwater current, I guess, or I guess it was. It's still like a rip current, but they were able to stay afloat at least. But
mm,
they got like just rocked like constantly by
oh,
waves pushing them into like a coral reef. So they were like
ooh,
stuck, and they like, well, my uncle got out of it, but his girlfriend did not, and she like was very close. Like they were basically, whenever they talk about it now, it's almost like a traumatic experience because they genuinely thought that that was like she was going to die,
right,
which is such a scary thing. Like that freaks me out. Again, why the ocean freaks me out way more than like a lake does.
dude.
But
I don't know if it's true. I've heard it a couple of times. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But people say like we know more about outer space than we know about the ocean.
yeah, I
Like
know what you're talking about. Yeah,
that freaks me out, man.
I
That's
know. Yeah, there might be some megalodons down there still, like that. I watched the Meg
yeah,
movie on one
the
of the
Meg.
flights I took. Not a good
Yeah,
movie, but it's
yeah.
I
That's
could
a
see
turn your
something
brain
being down
off
there.
and enjoy the popcorn movie.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh
um,
man.
have you ever been to Hawaii?
Now I want to go. Need to get
So
a.
we had a family vacation years ago to Maui. And I mean, nowhere near like getting caught in a rip current or anything. But we were at the beach at Maui and I was pretty far out. I was probably like, I don't know, 30 yards out from the beach. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, like I was just kind of drifting with the current. And all of a sudden, like I got to this point where like the coral and whatever was I mean, to me, it felt like it was just like a couple of inches like below my chest, and I'm just
Mhm.
floating with the current. But there were all these sea urchins. It was just
Yeah.
covered in sea urchins. So all like, I just see all these like needle spikes, like as
Mhm.
far as I can see, and the current's like like ebbing, and I'm like going down, and they're getting closer, and I'm like, I don't know how
Yeah.
to get out of here because like if I paddle, like I'm gonna be.
Right.
That was scary.
Gosh. Yeah, I do
And it
really want to
wasn't
go to
like
Hawaii, but don't want to experience
yeah.
that.
Hawaii is awesome.
Yeah.
But that wasn't like a, oh my God, I'm gonna die. That was just like a this
This
is
is gonna
gonna
suck.
suck. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Well, I guess not funny, but you get the point.
It's funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, that's all I got. You got anything else? I can't believe I almost forgot about the death question. That's like
Oh, I know people
my
are
big
gonna
question,
now they're gonna be waiting until the very end though.
right?
Get that
Right?
retention going. I didn't mention
Yeah.
it earlier for a reason.
Thank you.
But no, man, I think we covered a lot of stuff. Like I don't get to talk about this kind of stuff a lot on my channel, so it's nice to have that freedom too. So I appreciate you doing this in general, like making this a series, making this something that you're doing because I think it is needed out there. I wish I could do more of this, like on my my series and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's just so not unfortunately. I do love the credit card stuff, but it has to be kind of focused on that for me. Which the beyond credit is stuff that I love
Yeah.
as well. So yeah.
Well, see, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And for me, I kind of
Mhm.
look at it like I wonder if it was smart for me to do this, right? Because beyond credit, it's talking to people's, favorite credit card YouTubers, but
Mhm.
there's a finite number
Yeah.
of people, people's favorite credit card YouTubers. So what happens once, like, Lord willing, I'm able to get through everybody. That would be amazing. Do I
Right.
expect that to happen? No, but let's just say I do. Then what?
Right.
So I
Yeah.
kind of wonder if I painted myself into a corner.
You could always change it to like beyond finance or something,
Yeah.
switch up the
Yeah.
name at some point. Or like you could even change, like, you could do a series based on each niche that you talk to or whatever, if you wanted to keep talking to creators or if you wanted to get into something different. It's like you have a beyond credit,
Yeah.
you have a beyond finance, a beyond, I don't know,
Yeah.
YouTube in general. But that's why I did like the whole creator conversations, because I wanted to be able to talk to, I guess, any creators, no
Right.
matter what niche they were in. But for the most part, it's going to be, it takes a long time to get through all the credit card creators. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with our schedules.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, most people are not doing this full time like I'm able to. So I'm fortunate in that regard.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this was awesome. This was a good talk for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me and setting it up and everything. And sorry it took so long to get it done, but here we are.
No, yeah, no, hey, it was worth it for sure, man. I definitely
Yeah.
had a good time.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, that said, again, Spencer Johnson, if you guys haven't already, please go check out his channel. The dude is incredibly well versed in credit cards, knows what he's talking about, puts in a lot of work and puts out a lot of good information. Very easy to watch, very entertaining. Obviously,
You.
as you've seen, he's a very cool dude. Great guy to talk to, great guy in general. Thanks again for checking out the channel. Before we sign off, do you have anything you want to say to the people, Spencer?
No, I do want to say, though, reiterate the opposite too. Definitely subscribe to this channel that you're watching this on. If you did come from mine, for example, I'm sure I'll be sharing this, from my actual channel as well once it comes out. So be sure to subscribe here, because Richie's going to be doing a lot more of these, and they're all great. And you're a pleasure to talk to. So thank you for all the kind words and for bringing me on.
Thanks, man. It was great. Guys, thanks again. Take care of yourselves. Be good. God bless.